but also a little bit beyond my work, the work of many people that are working in parallel with me or with me. And the issue is about social innovation. That's a term that probably somebody between you knows and somebody between you do not know, but in the recent times it's been very successful. It means many people is using it, and in if and how design can have something to do with it. But before that, let me make one premise, just to tell you how I'm going to make my presentation. Recently, I designed a kind of a poster where the main concept that normally I talk about when I'm invited to speak are summarized. So don't worry, I'm not going to explain each one of the single topic and terms that you can find there. It's only to help us to know where we are in the complexity. So as probably everybody knows today, one of our problems is on one side to recognize the complexity of the world in which we are, for what I got myself also not only to recognize, but also to appreciate. So the fact that the world is complex is good, because it means that everything is rich. Something can always happen that you foresee, do not foresee. I don't know what is this thing. This is nice. It's not my soundtrack, but it works well. So this map, I will use it during my presentation to say where I am. Of course, you can see the biggest one. We have something related to a crisis, and we want to go on the bottom left, and we would like to go towards a sustainable society. And there is something in between that is related to the quality of this social innovation that we are talking about, and what design can do. Of course, in this conference in particular, I will talk about social innovation, and I will talk about emergent design. Nevertheless, to contextualize what the moment, the story in which we are now, I will simply very fast show you some images. It's very complicated. Okay, let's do like this. So, just to say where we are as Italian, as myself, but I think where we are also you as Colombian or the other friends and guests that are here. So for sure we are in a hyper-populated planet that is going to be even more populated. So we are moving from 7 billion to 11 billion. There could be a lot of people living in cities, but the majority of people will live in favelas, comunas, these kind of places. We live in a place that is quite polluted. We live in a place where the density is perceived in everyday life. At the same time, there are somebody that eat too much. We have a problem of obesity, one of the big problems in our world. At the same time, there are people that are starving. We are in a world in which the demographic pyramid has been shifted, and in many countries there are more elderly people than young people, but this is going to happen also in the ones as Colombia, for instance. So it's not that you will always have more young people than elderly people. In some decades, also in Colombia, the same shift that happened in Europe, in Italy, in Japan, in China will happen also here. So it's a very general problem. We are in a moment in which the fragility of the system, even the more complex, the one that pretends to be the more safe, has shown how fragile they are. How fragile are the cities, even the one that is supposed to be the capital of the world. We have seen as all the idea that we had on this new liberal economy have really arrived to the end. And it's not clear what is the alternative, but it's clear that they did not work. In Europe, where we was lucky enough to have a welfare state, we know that the welfare state, as we have seen until now, will not work for the future. And we are listening this terrible story about the political, environmental, social, economical migrants that are not anymore a teeny minority as it has been in the past, but is starting to be a larger group of the population of the planet, and is presenting probably the biggest problem that we are urgently facing. So all this could appear very great, and it is very great. And we are facing what many people and myself also call it a multiple crisis. So, promise, this is the end of the sad part of the story, but as being a designer, I have to be positive, I have to bet on some possibilities. We all know that the crises are catastrophic on one side, but they are also the moment in which new energy can be generated and new opportunities can be opened, and therefore here, us, as a designer and artist, I think it's mandatory to commit not only to understand the dimension of the crisis, because if we do not understand the dimension and the articulation of the crisis, we don't have an idea where we are, but at the same time to understand and to recognize where there are the beginning of the new. And my lecture from now on will be on the beginning of the new. So going back to my map, if we mainly are in the middle of this crisis, that could be, of course, be described much longer than what I did, we are also in the same planet, in a planet in which something else is happening. And this is very important to be recognized, and it's our job to be capable to recognize and to see even how we can do something to promote the seeds and the trends that represent the new opportunities. Before saying that, I will say a phrase that I always say to everybody, from my younger students to my older friend in the village where I live. If we generalize, if we say the people, if we say the companies, if we say the students, if we say the institutions, if we say the party, if we generalize, unfortunately, everywhere, I think in Colombia too, what you see is very gray, if not very dark, if not really black. But luckily, society is very complex and very dynamic. So if you generalize, in reality, you don't see anything. If you want to see where are the possibilities, the driver of change, you have to look into the society and to choose what you want to see. And I think that we have to look in the complexity of our society and recognize who is doing something that we think to be promising, so that they are moving in a direction that could be interesting to try to promote the change toward a more sustainable, economically, socially, environmentally sustainable society. And if we look around, we see that there are a lot of people that help each other, that there are several cases. I use some cases that comes from my colleagues around in the world that are, for instance, improving the neighborhoods when the neighborhood has been desertified by the transformation of the city. People that try to collaborate in between the citizen and the countryside against the vision of food that is hyper-industrialized food and hyper-industrialized agriculture that are very damaging for the environment and for society. We even have recently seen, and we start to see, a change in the way in which the job and the work and the organization can be thought. And I will come back. Now, this is only to give you the flavor of what I'm talking about. The result is that if we look attentively, we can recognize that there are good news. And that in this moment in the world, there are hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people that without waiting for the government change, without waiting for laws, without waiting for money from somebody, without waiting for somebody else, decided to start and do something that could be useful for themselves and could be useful for the society, and as we will see, could have a very important meaning in the transformation toward, hopefully, a sustainable society. This boiling pot that I'm trying to evocate and to describe can be seen as a way of social innovation. So with this term, I now arrive at the point of the social innovation. That I don't know if you have an idea, so I'm sure that many of you have a very clear idea, because the term now is not new. It's a kind of buzzword. It's very much used, but maybe somebody not. So I have to try to introduce it for the ones that maybe are not so familiar. I think that everybody is familiar with the idea of innovation. Innovation means there is an invention, and afterward this invention in some way penetrates in the society and change something in the society. So the invention is not innovation, it's not yet innovation. Invention is the precondition to create the possibility to transform something in the system. So some of the invention become innovation, and therefore they change something in the organization, in the society. For a long period, practically all the past century, we said only innovation. For instance, the European Union was always talking about innovation, innovation, innovation. And it was obvious that innovation was the technological innovation, the scientific and technological innovation. And therefore, the inventor were the scientists, and afterward the technologists that promoted the technology, and afterward maybe the designer transformed this technology that was at the beginning without a real meaning in something more or less meaningful for the society. And one of the traditional definition of design is we humanize technology. So some mad inventor invented something, and we are the one that try to find a way to bring it into the society. This was innovation until a few decades ago. At a certain moment, somebody started to observe that innovation, so what changed in the society, what changed the society, is not necessarily something that starts from scientific research, laboratory, technological laboratory, and afterward penetrate into the society, but there are a lot of social inventors that generate social new organizations that operate in the society as a driver of change, and so they generate social innovation. Luckily, of course, this is not something that happened only in the last 30 years. It always happened in all the history of human beings. We have also social innovation, but has been never named in this way. In the last 25 years, somebody started to focus on this term, and luckily, in the last 20, 15, 10 years, the vision of what is social innovation, the potentiality of social innovation exploded for several reasons, and I will tell some of them. Therefore, now it's sufficiently clear, if I take again the European community, today in the call for research, you find a lot of call of research that are not only for technological innovation, but also for social innovation. And this is a very good signal. And the social innovation, as the technological innovation, goes in waves. So it's not a kind of continuum. There are some moments in which there's a kind of explosion of innovation. This happened for the technological side, and it happened also in the social side. And who studies social innovation said that you have a new wave of social innovation when society is facing problems, and when a previous wave of technology penetrated in the society. And in this period, we are exactly in this condition. The dimensions of the problems we have seen a while before, and these are problems that penetrate very deeply in the everyday life of people. And as everybody knows, in the last 30 years, technology, and specifically the information communication technology, entered in society and spread enormously everywhere, including the places less developed in the traditional sense. So you know, for instance, that the growth of the mobile phone in Africa is exponential. So it's really something that enters everywhere, so you have to imagine now hundreds of millions of people facing every day new problems with the mobile phone. with the internet in the hand. And when this happened, these hundreds of thousands and millions of people could invent something new that nobody had imagined before. When this happened, we have social innovation, and in this moment we have a wave of social innovation, a growing wave of social innovation. If you read all these, the background names, I'm sure I don't, well, it's the first time that I come in this city, but I know in Colombia, and I know that for sure you know some of these terms. I'm not going now to explain all of them. They are different ideas that in the last 30 years emerged, started by some inventors that I call the heroes, and some of them progressed, some of them became very strong, some of them spread, some of them became a kind of new trend. All these that are covering all the area of the human experiences, from food, a new way of organizing food and relationship with agriculture, toward social services, toward mobility, toward housing, toward how to organize work. All of these are different interesting ideas that somebody in some way invented and put in practice in prototype, that afterward some of them become also very solid social innovation experiences. So this is the social innovation. This is a kind of definition, but it says more or less what they have said. What is important is, by our point of view, at least by my point of view that I'm a designer, but I think also the ones that are not designers, is that to generate this kind of inventions and to transform that into reality and make it real and capable to change the reality, it means that all these people are being capable to design. They do not define themselves designers very often, probably, but they are by all means designers. And the process that generates social innovation can be seen as a process in which, in some way, everybody designs in an open-ended process. I mean, in a process that is always a continuously in evolution. There is a huge diversity, as you can imagine. The service ideas are thousands and thousands. Each service idea is very diverse because they are very local, contextual related, but they have something in common. Many things in common. But I want to focus on one that is the one in my view is the most interesting for our discussion. So all of them can be seen as an organization, and the character of this organization is that they are collaborative organizations. So in some way, and this is particularly clear in the places so-called hyper-developed, where the drive toward being very individualized is highly pushed, so the most individualized society, it's a little bit as people that became so individualistic rediscover the power of doing things together. And as we will see, it's not only the power for the sake of solving some problem, but it's also something that can become meaningful, so give meaning to your existence, so you solve the problem and you in some way build a part of your identity. And I will say, as a designer, in some way they also are creating a new kind of beauty, even if this has to be discussed. So the way in which this new form of collaboration are happening, in my view, is very interesting. And what is very interesting for several society where the main issue is the vertical form of the mutual trust, both especially the vertical one, but also the horizontal, a little bit as nobody trusts in anybody else. They are also rebuilding trust, mutual trust. And this is very important. And therefore, as I said before, we can find a new generation of collaborative services. For instance, I quoted Europe, but it's not only Europe, it's something that is happening also in North America, and it's happening also in some part, at least, of South America. Strangely enough, it's happening also in China. So it's happening in all the places where, for instance, people, the government recognize that they don't have money enough to manage all the social services that are needed, in the traditional sense where you're intending a service. So somebody is served, waiting to be served. The collaborative organizations are the ones that try to consider people not only as a problem, but also as a resource, as a part of the solution. And so you have the possibility to reconcile what are the social services, considering that the state is not the one that delivers everything, but it's a kind of partner that helps people to help themselves. It's very politically delicate, it's very slippery. And by the way, if I well understood, I'm going to have a seminar with somebody with you exactly on this point. So what does it mean if we design artifacts, not considering the people as a problem, but considering the people as a part of the solution? So this field about service is one, social services is one of the main drivers to consider social innovation as important by the institutions. There is all the story about agriculture that is one of the most serious areas in which things are changing. The idea of the local seasonal food, the idea of zero mile, the idea of creating what is called a community-supported agriculture, that create a collaboration between communities in the city and community of farmers that interact directly both to exchange the products, but also to exchange the help and to work together. It's something that is really a kind of international movement where you can find it really everywhere. This one is China. I like to put China because it could appear very far from this discussion. Or the issue about how we can recompose the way in which we live. The normal Western way to propose, that is proposing everywhere, is to close every household in the box. And the box should include every services, and all the boxes are separated from the others. This is the model that comes from the Victorian age, transformed, and now it's totally inadequate. Given that in many countries, in Italy for instance, the majority of the household now is one person or two persons. So there is a dramatic need to reconsider how we create these boxes in which we live and how we share some services that could be much better in terms of effectiveness and also in terms of recreation of neighborhoods if we create collaborative housing, collaborative way of living, not living together as in a kibbutz or in a hippie community, but living nearby and negotiating what we want to do together. And as I said before, there is a lot of story about the possibility, you know, the maker movement, the Fab Lab, the possibility to reorganize a system of production and consumption in a more collaborative system of production in a more collaborative way. Good. All this is happening. There is a lot to do to support it. And all the description that I've done until now is done in design terminology as a problem solving. So what they try to sell you until now, I don't know where is the one that they tell me? I lost the notion of that. In any case, until now I've spoken about social innovation as a problem solver. I started showing you problems. I say that these problems are very great. But there are something that is happening, there is the kind of boiling pot in which new ideas are emerging that could solve in a radically new way some of these problems. Until now, and as you can imagine, it's very important, and as you can imagine, it's a field in which who is in between you designer could do a lot. But the problem solving, that, by the way, also proposed very interesting organizational model, and in some way it also offered the first seed of an alternative to the crazy economy that we have in this moment. It is a kind of ecology of economies. But this is not the center of my discussion. I want to move now, I don't know how long time I have, to what, so also this for me was important, but now I want to move to what is really more original and I hope more adequate. This social innovation, in the sense that I am proposing until now, they are not only solutions for problems, as they are, and this is very important, by the way, but they are also sense makers. So they are really places where something is happening that could be seen as the beginning of a new, radically new culture. In English, they say a disruptive quality, that sounds very badly in Italian, but disruptive means really an idea that changed radically what was before. It means really an idea that changed radically what was before. So for instance, they talk about equality of time that is not the mainstream. If you want to enter in whatever of the different organizations that I propose you, normally you have to take some time and to slow a little bit down. So they are introducing a notion that I would call an ecology of time, because they are not simply everybody has to slow down, stop. They simply say, look, there are different moments. There are moments in which it's okay to be in a very fast pace, but there are some other moments in which we can have and we can like and we should like to slow down. They are rediscovering the place. These are communities in the discussion about the digital communities, virtual community. It appeared that the place was not important anymore, that everybody was living in this virtual digital reality. In this case, not at all. They use a lot of the digital things, but they always bring them back to a place. And for several reasons that I don't know if we will have the time to develop, I think that to rediscover the importance of the place, or in my word, in the capability to give meaning to space, and giving meaning to space, creating places, is fundamental to try to avoid some new trends that could be in our future. They ask to people to be active and so in some way to work, and therefore they are bringing again the issue about work and the issue about something well done into our discussion. The previous society was a society in which everybody said, okay, you have to work, beyond the fact that there was no work, but we are supposed to work, and afterward the quality of the life is in your free time, it's in the entertainment. Where the reality is that we can express ourselves and we can have fantastic time when we do something that we like. So they bring back the idea that work could be also something that is part of the quality of your life, and the result of your work is the well done. A little bit kind of rediscovering some of the characters of the traditional good craftsman, that in the definition of Richard Sennett, that by my way is a fantastic book, you have not to read it, the craftsman says the craftsman is who works for the sake of the quality